Well, hello and welcome everybody to yet another episode of the Inluminance podcast, where today we shall be talking about the conversation that changes everything. This conversation is one that I facilitate on a regular basis, and it is a conversation that was facilitated for me that set me on this path of working with HSPs and doing the work that I'm here to do in the world. Let's dive in. Inluminance specializes in developing sensory processing sensitivity, a natural high sensory intelligence present in 30% of the population, co-creating with the power of humanity to consciously evolve towards balance. All right. So a very warm welcome again. Thank you for joining me here today. It is a great pleasure to be talking about this very key piece, which can be rather emotional. Certainly was for me. And that is always a good sign because it is revealing something that is very important to us. And that's the basis to this conversation that we must have as HSPs. And before I dive in, may I mention how much of a delight it is for me to be able to speak to a person such as yourself, an HSP, who may like to have a conversation about what matters most to you and get some guidance in order for you to be able to get the clarity that you need around your gifts, around your work, how you can be of service, and how you can make sense of what it really means to be an HSP. To do that, simply head to the Inluminance website and head to book a call, and you can book a session with me for no charge. I absolutely love meeting new HSPs that allows me to share this amazing breakthrough that is possible for all of us, and for me to be able to give you some insights into this conversation that I'm going to talk about today. You don't have to have anything prepared for this conversation. You don't need to say anything profound. It's just a matter of turning up. However, one thing that I do ask is that you are truly committed to wanting to make a difference in your life and to understand how you can make a difference in the world generally by utilizing and aligning with your gifts. You don't need to have that figured out. You don't need to have plans to be on a global stage, but my request is that if you do book a call, you're serious about wanting to uncover and understand your gifts, and that you're interested in bringing them into service in some way, whether that's through your work, whether it's through a business, whether it's through enhancing your career, whatever it may be. If that is the case and you're driven and you want to really understand these amazing phenomena of what it really means to be an HSP, then it will be my pleasure to meet you on a call. Simply head to inluminance.com, head to book a call, and you can book a free discovery call. If you want to, you can go straight into booking a full session with me where I can take you through a facilitation process which will help you to reveal your natural area of expertise, how your gifts serve that, and the area of purpose that you are naturally designed to bring into the world. You are also most welcome to book that full session if you would like to, or if you would just like to meet me and you just like to talk about how I can support you, or you just like to talk about understanding what it really means to be an HSP, then please go ahead and select the free option. It would be my pleasure to speak with you. So there we are. The link is in the description. The spelling of Inluminance is different to what you may be hearing. It's not Illuminance, it's Inluminance, which is Indigo November, those two letters at the front. Or you can go to highsensoryintelligence.com, that opens the same website. All right, so let us dive into this very important conversation that I am excited to talk about today. This conversation came to me the beginnings of this conversation came to me when I was very lucky to be working with a mentor that deeply understands what it means to be a highly sensitive person, and a person who is highly skilled in feeling into the deeper truths and reality of the world around, and also the people that he facilitates. And I was very lucky to be able to begin work with him. And what this allowed me to do was to be able to feel safe enough to talk about, first of all, what really matters to me and what's actually happening in my sensory awareness. What I mean by sensory awareness is the way in which I am actually processing and perceiving the world around me. Now, that part of things is quite tricky to comprehend at this point because we're so used to being in our own experience, and we tend to assume that everyone's seeing the world like we do, and we tend to assume that there isn't really any value or really any importance to how we might be perceiving the world as an HSP. And that, I assure you, is so far from the truth. What you're perceiving is key to what you're here to do in the world. The importance of this conversation always begins with the area of life that we are most fascinated by, the area of life that we're most called to want to explore. And this occurs to us really deeply in our hearts as HSPs. It occurs at a soul level. It's something that we deeply want to explore. So in my case, I was given the opportunity to explore what love really meant for me. That was one of the key pieces that came through. And that allowed me to talk into the experience that I was having with love, the relationship that I was having with love at a very early age. And I'm talking about love in terms of the frequency of that energy that is occurring within us and is actually occurring within all things. When I was sitting in nature, for example, I would be having this immersive experience of connection and flow, peace, and an experience of this joyful, magical experience, which is what I call love. From a very early age, I knew that there was something fascinating happening at the deeper level in the world around me. I was fascinated by the interaction that I was noticing between people, the interaction between people and animals, the interaction between people that were in love, and most importantly, or one of the most the profound experiences I had was attending a wedding after I had this breakthrough, and I'm going to come back to that just in a moment. This relationship that I was having with love from an early age was a fundamental part of who I was and who I am. It was allowing me to understand the deeper nature of what's happening within us and what's happening in the world around us. And I used to get so confused by how we can be so disconnected from love and from the deeper truths of life. That used to be prominent for me as a child. I used to be aware of how I would glitch in and out of a deeper connection, especially as I started to get older. And I would notice how the adults around me would seem to be so lost within themselves and be grasping for something and using such weird ways to try to get back to that experience of love and to feel that experience of connection. And of course, I then had to go through all of that in my own adulthood as I was becoming an adult. where I lost connection with this ability to immerse myself and connect as a child. And of course, my work, my development, my personal development work was all about reconnecting with this ability to immerse with love that I'd lost. And we're supposed to lose it. That's how we regain conscious awareness, by having to go through the hero's journey of refinding it again as an adult. That's how we create healing. That's how we are of service in the world, by being able to walk that path for others. It is how we raise frequency, by going through that alchemical process of coming from a place of knowing and then losing that knowing and then regaining it again. It's the path that nature has destined for us in this dimension that we call the physical reality. Why that does that is for another conversation. And one day I would actually love to talk about that conversation. So I'll do that on the podcast with someone else. I have a pretty good idea as to what is really going on in this physical reality, which I know is a bold statement, but I think we all do at a very deep level, and it's something that deeply fascinates me. Anyway, I digress. This relationship with love is the conversation that I really needed to have. And by having that conversation, it helped me to understand that this natural flow that is moving through everything, whether that is comfortable for you to consider that by utilizing the word God or universe or source, that there is this deeper intelligence that's residing within everything. And as HSPs, we really feel that. We have this ability to experience this deeper reality, this deeper energetic truth. And that's why this conversation is so important. That's why I'm talking about this right now, is because when we are able to talk about this ability to see that flow, to see that love, to see that deeper truth in the world around us, that's when our work truly begins, because that's when we can really start to utilize our abilities to serve that in the very unique way that each of us are designed to serve that. But it has to happen, this conversation, in order for us not only to become of service in the way that we're designed to, but also for us to be able to align with the truth of our identity. What is hugely painful for us is when we have to pretend to be someone that we're not. And that's the case for all human beings. That's one of the main causes of depression, is when we're playing a character that's not actually aligned with the truth of who we are. The truth of who we are is the source of our truth. It's the source of our authentic personality. It's the truth of who we are. And if we are ignoring that or we're repressing that, then that is not allowing the natural flow of energy to express itself through us. It's a bit like trying to expect a car to run on ethanol or, some kind of version of petrol or diesel that doesn't actually work properly in the engine. I mean, it might get by for a while and it'll splutter and cough and you might be able to drive it, but it's really not happy as a car. So when we are not in ownership of what matters most to us and how we're perceiving what matters most to us through the channel of who we are, then life is miserable for us. Miserable. I don't have a glass of water here. This is most annoying. It's really on my mind now. So that I may have to repeat some words to make sure that you're able to hear them okay. Anyway, it's a misery if we're not allowing ourselves to be in ownership of and expressing the truth of who we are. So once I was then invited to talk about what love really meant for me, of course I was in floods of tears. I was talking about something that had mattered most to me ever since I was a child, but who on earth was ready to hear what I've just told you there? That I was able to see this flow, was in relationship with this immersive intelligence that was flowing through everything, flowing through me, that was directly related to my purpose. And I knew that it was playing this important role in the world, and I'm actually able to feel and see that energy. I can't say that to just everybody and anybody. I can now, because I'm saying it to those people that really need to hear it. But I don't go to a cafe and stand at the bar ordering my latte, talking about the magical flow of energy that I can see going through everything, because people are not ready to hear that, and people find that kind of language confusing and unsettling, and that then brings up fear. So I have learned that there are a very specific subset of people that really need to hear this, such as yourself listening to this podcast. Perhaps you're watching this on YouTube. I'm saying this to you specifically because as an HSP, you need to have a relationship with this part of yourself that can also see the world in this way. When I initially had this conversation, it was hugely emotional for me, because finally I was being seen by somebody who understood this nature of reality, somebody who was able to hold the space for me to talk about this conversation. And then it began to reveal why I'm able to see this flow, because of my ability to facilitate the revelation of this in others. Now, I've said this many times, but I didn't know that I knew that gift was operating in me, but it was latent. In other words, it was way down in my kind of out of my conscious reach. It wasn't in my day-to-day awareness. I knew that there was something happening within me, and sometimes it would come through. Sometimes I would really hit the nail on the head when I was having a conversation with a friend or a stranger, and they'd be like, "Whoa, how can you see that?" And I think, I don't know, but I just know what it's connected with. I just know that there's this intelligence in you, and somehow I can just feel that. And sometimes I get the right sentences in my head and it aligns for you, And I'm sure you've had many experiences like that, but it was very frustrating for me not to truly understand how that was happening and what it was really meant for. And so I would be, in the wrong jobs and not implementing this ability and not recognizing the importance of the role that I was really here to play. And that is really painful for us. That's when we're living out of alignment with this truth of our identity. Because these elements, these facets of ourselves, what really matters to us, what we're perceiving, what we're noticing in the world, and how our journey trains us, we need the data from these four pieces to truly align with the truth of our nature, which is exactly what the High Sensory Method course does. The reason I created that program is to give you the opportunity to answer these questions so you can get this experience of the truth of your identity and the truth of your purpose. And that's also on the Inluminance website. Now, the reason that it was such a breakthrough for me during this conversation was because the penny started to drop for me that helped me to understand and make sense of why I'd been given this gift and now what I could do with this gift. That was the key. It's like, okay, now I can see that people need to understand the truth of their nature in order to be of service in the world. That was the piece. People need to understand the truth of their nature to truly be of service in the world. That was the piece that I needed. The imbalance that I could see in the world and that I see so often is when we have people that are not initiated into the truth of themselves and have the courage to heal the trauma that is holding the true truth of their potential and purpose away from them, then how can they be in leadership in a way that truly serves others? And in my experience, that's exactly what's happening in global leadership. We are not operating a system that takes people through a high level of personal development and trauma healing in order for them to be in their truth and power in a position of leadership. We're not doing that. So we've never seen masculinity in aligned power in leadership before, which is why the patriarchal system is such an issue. Instead, what we've got is we've got a system that means if you've got the most money and you're clever at campaigning and you're clever at telling everybody what they want to hear, then you're able to attain a position of power and run the world. Well, it's an absolute bleep show. So that was the imbalance that I could see in the world around me, that if we are not in our truth, then how can we truly be of service? So when I began my own journey as a child, I was in my truth, as we are, and then we lose that connection with ourselves. We go into this hero's journey. And when I went into that period of being lost as an early adult and my development began, the imbalance that I could see in the world was the fact that everyone around me didn't appear to be in their truth, and me included. And it felt so painful for me that I wasn't able to access my body, essentially, initially. In other words, I was just existing in my head in this false identity. It was so excruciating for me that I wasn't able to be of service properly and be in my purpose properly. And it took me a long time, a lot of work for me to regain access to my own power, my own truth, my own abilities, in order for me to be able to tie those in to this greater cause of facilitating the revelation of truth in others so they can come into service in the world. So I have to be deeply in that work myself. I'm in continuous training myself to enhance my relationship with the truth of myself and with the truth of love that is trying to work through me in order for me to be able to do the work that I'm here to do so that I can facilitate an HSP. So when you come and sit in front of me, or perhaps you have already done so, you'll see that I am able to ask the right questions that allow you to have an experience of this version of what I'm talking about, of what really matters to you, how your gifts are designed to serve it, and how you can come into aligned purpose and understand the truth of your potential. So that's the work that love wants to do through me. And there's many people out there that can do what I do. Obviously, nobody can do exactly what I do because I'm unique, you're unique, everybody's unique. What's actually very interesting on that note is HSPs have the ability to be able to read truth of self in other people. We're very, very good at it. So in the hundreds of people that I've now trained since I began this work, I have seen that time, and in fact, I've seen it in everybody. Without exception, I've seen that ability in everybody to be able to read the deeper nature within their ideal client. And that's always matched to their area of expertise and how life's been naturally challenging them. So in every single case, whatever their area is, relationships, personal development, wealth, whatever it may be, business, personal development, I think I've said that twice. When we understand what this area is that deeply matters to us, you will discover as an HSP that you have an ability to read more deeply into a person who is trying to reveal that similar ability in themselves. And that's because our ideal clients are versions of ourselves. So this is why HSPs are so important in the world. This is why we're sensitive. We're sensitive because our sensory equipment is designed to perceive more deeply into the world. That's why we're known as the royal advisor. That's why we are so exceptional as leaders. And that's why we're so exceptional at advising leaders. And that's why it occurs in 30% of the population and why it's in 100 species of animals that we know of. When we observe it in action in the animal kingdom, they are exceptionally skilled at communicating the deeper information that they're seeing in the world around them to support the evolution and survival of the animal community that they exist in. It's clear in all the research that's happening. And this is what we are supposed to be doing as HSPs. And this is why this conversation is so important. Because in your heart, you know all of this that I'm saying. You can feel the resonance of it. And it's because you are here to perform a similar role. And that will be in your own personal area of fascination, whatever way that's designed to unfold for you. It's going to be in your career, it's going to be in your business, but it's going to be, you have the opportunity to understand how that works in your career and in your business. So this conversation is the basis to everything. It is the experience of understanding how our sensory reality is designed to work as an HSP. And it's crucial that we have this conversation. So to wrap things up, let me tell you this story about what happened when I was at this wedding. So many years back when I began this work, I was very fortunate to go to a wedding with my mentor, who is highly skilled in this facilitation malarkey. And he is a very powerful man energetically. And he was actually a part of the ceremony. What was he doing? Yes, he was playing a role in the aficionado, helping to officiate the wedding. I don't think that is the right word, but you know what I mean. He was part of conducting the ceremony, should I say. So we weren't sitting together. I was sitting at the front, and he was sitting at the back of the room after he'd done his piece. As soon as what is that word? It's not the officiant, the person officiant. Oh my goodness, I'm not even going to try and say it again. The person who was leading the ceremony for the wedding was in herself a person of spiritual capacity. And many people in that role, of course they are. They are performing a ceremony in the name of love. And so when she came into the space in front of me, I could immediately feel that there was a presence to her, and she was the right person to marry these two people. And I knew the people that were getting married, of course. That's why I was there as a guest. And what I began to witness was profound. Now, as I explain this to you, some of you listening to this, especially perhaps you've just found this YouTube channel and you've got no idea what being an HSP is, and you are tuning in, this may sound fantastical to you and probably like a bold-faced lie. For those of you that are an HSP and you are connected with this type of conversation, it's going to make sense. And I'm going to challenge you, or invite you, should I say, to feel into some examples of circumstances where you have had similar experiences to this. So let me see if I can recall this, because it was quite some time ago. As the two people came together to be married, obviously the bride was there, and then the groom came in, And as soon as the groom came in and stood next to the bride-to-be, with the officiant, is that the word? With the person leading the ceremony, there was this shift in the container of the energy in that room. And what was happening for me is I noticed a shift in the container as a visual, energetic experience. Now, because these two people were in love, of course, and because they were about to get married, this container around them was of love. Now, what began to happen, which at the time I didn't understand what was happening, because I was really, really, really moved by what was happening in this room. And I was finding it very difficult to manage my emotions. I was weeping pretty much throughout the whole ceremony. And at the time, whilst I was witnessing this visual phenomenon that was happening, I really didn't truly understand exactly what I was seeing. So as the ceremony began, I began to see a formation of light, cloudy energy that was responding to what was being said by the person leading the ceremony and the responses that the bride and groom were making. I saw some some occasions. I saw a column of this. It was like a sort of a misty light, which I was seeing through my heart. So it's different to kind of seeing that in the same visual sense, where I was seeing what it feels like. So depending on what was being said and what was happening, this formation of light and energy changed its position as in relation to the moment of what was happening in the ceremony. There was a very powerful healing happening between these two people who were about to be married. And I was seeing how that occurred visually. In other words, how love was actually facilitating this healing between these two people. And as the ceremony went on, it was not a typical Christian ceremony. I'm so sorry, I just haven't got the correct words for this type of ceremony, but it was an opportunity for the people getting married to choose the type of ceremony that they wanted. And the person that was leading it was very gifted in facilitating these types of ceremonies that are more spiritually based rather than the conventional church type of wedding. So I was watching this movement and this flow of how it moved from sometimes above them to around them, how the container shifted depending what was happening. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because when that was happening, I didn't know that that's what I was seeing. Now, because my mentor was sitting at the back of the room, he was seeing the same thing happening. So during my next session, when I was with him, because he's so intuitive, and probably because he could see the mess that I was in, because it was such an emotional experience for me, he said to me, "What were you seeing when the ceremony was taking place?" And because we'd already been having conversations about my ability to be able to see love and energy and flow in this way, I felt safe enough to talk about exactly what I was seeing. And what was amazing was that he was able to share with me what he was seeing as we had this conversation together. And I was able to experience this amazing opportunity that I had to be able to understand that what I was seeing was actually happening, because there was someone else in the room seeing the same thing happening. And there may have been other HSPs in the room potentially who were also witnessing a similar phenomena. And this is why I'm inviting you to think about these types of experiences, because I know that you will be seeing this. You have the ability to see energy in this way. Because we had this conversation together, and because as I was talking about it, he was helping me to put words to why the energy was the healing energy of love was doing what it was doing at particular points in the ceremony. And through him being able to hold the conversation and to allow me to understand what was happening and to be able to include his experience that allowed me to realize that what I was seeing was actually happening, it then allowed me to trust this ability that I have to read energy in this way. So when I'm sitting in front of someone and I'm facilitating, love is trying to heal that person that's in front of me. And it's using me to facilitate the conversation, to conduct this healing. Now that from that point forward where I knew this ability that I have to feel what energy looks like, or to feel what it looks like, or to see what it feels like, you understand what I mean? Now that I know that that's real, that I'm actually seeing that, it's not something that I'm projecting or making up, it's actually happening. That allows me to read what this energy is trying to do in the person in front of me. And I intuitively receive the right questions to ask. And I can feel and see when we're on track and when we're not on track. And that's what allows me to facilitate the revelation of truth in front of someone in front of me, so they can understand the truth of their potential and purpose and bring it into service in the world. So I am designed to facilitate this. I'm designed at a sensory level to be able to see and read the flow of love, how it's trying to heal, in order for people to come into alignment with the truth of who they are so they can come into service. This was the imbalance that I've always seen in the world. This is the conversation that I always wanted to have. And from being able to have that conversation, I am now able to be in ownership of my ability, and I'm able to utilize it, and I'm no longer in rejection of this ability and this gift within myself, and I'm no longer in rejection of my identity that is fundamentally tied to this ability. So I now live a life that is a bleep sight more conducive to my happiness and peace and success, and this is what is available for you. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been helpful. Please let me know, if you're watching this on YouTube, in the comments below how this resonates for you. Have you had any experiences like this? Please do know that there is an opportunity for you to have this conversation. And I recommend having this conversation in a safe space with somebody who knows what they're doing. I do not recommend trying to talk about this with friends and loved ones and anyone else who doesn't understand this, because it's a very important part of who you are. And if it's not received in the right way, it will only add to you rejecting it further. And we do not want that. We need it to be owned, expressed, and loved and developed. So on that note, please let me know if this is resonating for you. Please let me know if you have any questions, and please know that it will be my greatest pleasure to facilitate this conversation for you. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Take lots of care. Bye for now.